I am friends with Ashton. I am friends with you, and I read this book, and like you say, it's your experience, but you talk about that he was not faithful to you, that he had affairs, and then you talk about that he kind of instigated you having threesomes.
And I don't think it should be implied that he instigated. I think it was, and again, in trying to keep the perspective on my story, he expressed something that was of a fantasy, and it was in my efforts to want to please and be what I thought he wanted.
Not all Hollywood love stories end in fairy tales, and Demi Moore just proved that hers with Ashton Kutcher was far from perfect. She's bringing receipts, and these aren't just any accusations. This might change everything we thought we knew about their relationship. Demi and Ashton were once one of Hollywood's most talked about couples, a love story that defied age gaps, expectations, and Hollywood norms. But behind the public smiles and red carpet moments, things weren't as perfect as they seemed, and now Demi is finally speaking out.
Everything's fine
bring it
now?
on.
Everything's okay now?
Oh, I'm great. Yeah. And no, he's not a part of my life anymore.
No, that's right.
Great. Yeah.
He's involved with Demi Moore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Seems all right, I guess.
Good going for him.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, I learned a lot in the past year, which is to not really speak about relationships on TV again or anything like that. And I suppose, like the crux of their relationship basically means, to him that age doesn't matter and to her that size doesn't matter.
From shocking betrayal to emotional manipulation, Demi isn't holding back anymore. She's revealing details about the infidelity, the power imbalance, and how she was made to feel not good enough in her own marriage. And let's just say, Ashton Kutcher's clean-cut image might not survive this one. Buckle up, because once you hear what Demi just revealed, there's no going back.
We've been conditioned societally to look at the value of a woman being tied to her fertility. Like, what would an older woman have to offer? I asked if it was true. And he admitted it right away. And I think my response was, "Are you kidding me?" That was it. And I think I felt like I could barely take a breath. I really know that there are parts of what occurred with this relationship ending that were a level of devastating for me that wasn't really just about that relationship. It was really about my whole life. It was about being the 2-year-old who wasn't safe, that this really represented that I'm not lovable, that I'm not deserving. And that's not about him. That's all just about me.
Back in 2003, Demi Moore and Hollywood's most iconic actresses fell for Ashton Kutcher, the young star who had just made it big with that 70s show. Despite their 15-year age gap, their chemistry was undeniable, and the world couldn't get enough of them. It wasn't just a fling. This was a real relationship, one that seemed to defy the usual Hollywood rules. Ashton was charming, funny, and completely different from anyone Demi had ever been with. And for Demi, who had already lived through a high-profile marriage and divorce with Bruce Willis, Ashton felt like a fresh start. To the fans, they were the modern couple. Demi, the confident and successful actress, and Ashton, the goofy, lovable heartthrob. But what really made people believe in them? The way Ashton stepped into the lives of Demi's 3 daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah. Ashton wasn't just a boyfriend, he became a father figure. He bonded with the girls, took them to school, and made it seem like they had built something something real. Bruce Willis was still in the picture, but Ashton fit into the family dynamic effortlessly. They weren't just a couple, they were a blended family, proving that love could work even in Hollywood. But as we now know, the perfect picture was just a picture. Behind closed doors, things weren't so flawless. Demi now reveals that cracks started forming early on, even if the world couldn't see them. What looked like a dream romance was actually filled with insecurities, power imbalances, and, as Demi puts it, a slow unraveling of who she was. And those cracks, they didn't just disappear, they only got worse. Because when a relationship is built on illusions, it only takes one truth to bring it crashing down. Demi's biggest bombshell reveals that Ashton was not the loyal husband everyone thought. She reveals that his charming, playful nature hid something much darker.
I think the thing, if I were to look back, I would say I blinded myself and I lost myself.
According to Demi, Ashton used their so-called open-minded relationship as an excuse to cheat. He painted himself as the fun guy who just wanted to keep things exciting, but in reality, he was pushing the boundaries, twisting the rules to justify his behavior. One of the most shocking details Demi revealed, she agreed to threesomes, thinking it would bring them closer, but instead of strengthening their relationship, it backfired in the worst way. Demi says she did it out of love, to make Ashton happy, but deep down it didn't feel right. And what did Ashton do? He allegedly used those moments as justification for his infidelity. In his mind, if they had already crossed certain lines together, then what was the big deal if he stepped out on his own? And then came the moment that shattered everything. Demi didn't find out about Ashton's affair from him. She found out from a Google alert. Imagine that. You're sitting at home thinking your marriage is strong, and then you see your husband's cheating scandal exposed like some Hollywood gossip story. Demi was blindsided. She was already struggling with personal battles, trying to hold the marriage together, dealing with her own emotional struggles, but instead of support, she got betrayal, and Ashton's reaction to her pain made things even worse. And if you thought that was bad, wait until you hear how Ashton allegedly responded to Demi's lowest moments.
You could see a combination of his dread and it shifting then immediately into matter-of-fact, practical information. Because it was unquestionable, because there was no heartbeat.
And you tried again. You had in vitro?
Quite a few times. I can't even really bring fully to words how lost, empty, desperate, confused. I really lost sight of everything that was right in front of me, which is the family I had.
One of the most heartbreaking moments in Demi's life was when she lost a child at 6 months pregnant. She had been overjoyed at the thought of starting a family with Ashton, believing it would solidify their love. But when the unthinkable happened, Demi says she was left feeling completely alone. Miscarriages are devastating, both physically and emotionally. For Demi, it wasn't just the loss of a baby, it was the loss of a dream, the future she had planned with Ashton. And while she expected comfort and support from her husband, what she got instead was cold distance. She recalls feeling like Ashton wasn't as affected as she was, as if he had already checked out. He didn't grieve with her the way she needed to. Instead of being a rock during her darkest moment, Demi felt like he was slipping further away. And that's when everything started drowning. Demi had been sober for nearly 20 years, but the pain of losing her child was unbearable. She turned to alcohol and substances, hoping to numb the heartbreak. But the thing about addiction is that it never really leaves, you just learn to manage it. And in this moment of weakness, it came rushing back. She started drinking again. She started using it again. And instead of Ashton being her support system, Demi says he was indifferent, maybe even enabling it. Ashton, according to Demi, had a much more relaxed attitude toward drinking. She claims he made comments that suggested her sobriety was optional, like it was something she could turn off and on instead of a serious struggle. And then there's the incident that shocked everyone. Demi recalls a night in Mexico when she was completely out of it, too intoxicated to even function. She ended up passing out in a hot tub, and instead of being worried or helping her, Ashton allegedly took a picture of her slumped over a toilet. Yes. Instead of checking if she was okay, instead of calling for help, Ashton thought it was funny enough to document. And later, he showed her the picture as if it was some sort of wake-up call. But Demi didn't see it as tough love, she saw it as humiliation. That was the moment everything clicked for Demi. She wasn't in a supportive marriage. She was in a relationship where she felt ashamed. And as much as she had fought for the marriage, it was clear that it wasn't worth fighting for anymore.
Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher made us all laugh in all of their TV series and movies. But according to Demi, the worst joke of all was the divorce between these two. Moore says that she didn't even think about a prenup when she got married to Ashton, but if she could go back, she would do it without hesitation. The couple was married in 2005 and filing for divorce by 2011. But their story doesn't end there. Because the couple did not sign a prenup before their marriage, their divorce actually lasted several years. This was due to the couple not being able to settle financial differences. The aftermath of this divorce left these two in pieces. Ashton took to a spiritual retreat in the mountains for a few weeks, and Demi wrote about her experiences in her book Inside Out.
By 2011, the marriage was over, Demi and Ashton separated, and by 2013, their divorce was finalized. And while Demi was still trying to pick up the pieces of her life, Ashton, he didn't waste any time moving on. He quickly started a relationship with Mila Kunis, his former That 70s Show co-star, and from the outside looking in, it was like he had completely erased his past with Demi. He got remarried, had kids, and built a whole new image, one where he was the devoted husband and loving father. But while Ashton was moving on, Demi was healing, and part of that healing process meant telling the truth. In her memoir, Inside Out, she pulled back the curtain on her marriage, exposing the painful reality of what she endured. She wasn't just some older woman who had been lucky to be with a younger man. She had been in a toxic relationship, one where she felt disposable, controlled, and ultimately abandoned when she needed love the most. When Inside Out was released, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. People had always seen Ashton as the lovable goofball, the guy next door. But suddenly, his past wasn't so easy to ignore. Some fans began questioning whether Ashton had manipulated the public narrative all along, painting himself as the innocent one while Demi was left looking like the crazy ex. And while he mostly stayed silent on her claims, the damage was already done. People were starting to look at him differently.
I was around Ashton Kutcher and Diddy before, and they were speaking about Brittany Murphy. And I don't think I ever told this story, and I'm about to tell this story here. While he was married to Demi Moore, he was still sneaking around seeing Brittany Murphy. You understand? We were going to Nets game, so we picked him up, and he was explaining to Diddy that every time he goes to Brittany's house, paparazzi always catches him or almost catch him coming out her apartment or coming out the building. Diddy was telling him that's either the doorman or your security, you know what I'm saying? And he was still married to Demi Moore at the time. So you could have something, you could be right. Because it's crazy how they said her and Kim and some other individual with them or around them all died of pneumonia and they were in perfect health.
Hollywood romances may seem like fairy tales, but behind the cameras, they're often filled with manipulation, betrayal, and hidden pain. Demi's story is a reminder that what we see in the tabloids isn't always the full picture. She was painted as the older woman clinging to a younger man, but in reality, she was struggling in a marriage where she felt abandoned and humiliated. Her experience shows how easy it is for powerful men in Hollywood to rewrite the narrative, turning themselves into the victim while their exes are left to pick up the pieces. Demi's decision to speak out wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her truth. Demi's revelations have sparked a massive debate. Some people are now questioning Ashton's character. Was he really the loving, supportive husband he appeared to be, or was he more calculated than we thought? A person commented saying, "Demi went through so much, and and instead of being there for her, Ashton acted like she was a burden. Another one added, I always thought their relationship was off, but I had no idea how bad it actually was. The fact that she found out about his cheating through a Google alert is just insane. Ashton has built his brand around being a tech investor, a family man, and a Hollywood nice guy. But with Demi's claims resurfacing, people are starting to look at him differently. Was he just moving on, or was he running from the truth? At the end of the day, there are always two sides to a story. But with Demi finally speaking her truth, the world is seeing Ashton Kutcher in a whole new light. What do you guys think about Demi's shocking claims? Do they change the way you see Ashton Kutcher? Let's get the conversation going in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because trust me, this Hollywood story is not over yet.